Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In this lesson, it's a short lesson. What I want to cover is the farz of ghusl. Okay, so it's here, you can see it. It's a very short passage. Let's read the Arabic first together. Wa farzul ghusli. The obligatory acts of ghusl. Remember, I don't know if I've covered this before, but when it's with a dhamma on the ghain here, right, we're talking about bathing, not washing. So the obligatory acts of ghusl. Uh, so farzul ghusli, for those of you who learn Arabic, this is izafa, muzaf, muzaf ilayh. So farzul ghusli, right? And the wow here is for atf. So there are three things that are compulsory when it comes to ghusl. Number one is al-mazmazatu, which basically means to rinse the mouth. Al-mazmazatu, which basically means rinse the mouth. That's the first thing, that's farz in ghusl. Then the second thing is wal istinshaqu, right? And the reason these are dhamma, for those of you learning Arabic, it's the khabar here. So istinshaqu is the second thing you have to do when you're doing ghusl, which is farz, is that you have to rinse the nose. Wal istinshaqu. So you have to wash the mouth or rinse the mouth. You have to clean the nose, rinse the nose out. And then the third thing, wa ghaslu sa'ir al-badan, and then to wash the entire body. The word sa'ir here, by the way, doesn't actually mean entire. We say entire, but the actual meaning for sa'ir, which is the root word for this is sin hamza ra, and it'll come later on. It's actually what's left over, the remainder. So to wash the remainder of the body, right? So for those of you who may be interested in Arabic, one could ask, why isn't the word kullu, for example, used for the entire body? We'll come to that later on, but intentionally, the author has used the word sa'id to wash the remainder of the body. Okay, sa'id, and badan obviously means the body. Okay, so there's only three things here that the author has mentioned is farz when it comes to ghusl. All right, we've done the Arabic. Let's just kind of explain and explore this a little bit more for our benefit. So, um, of course, when it comes to uh, the first one, which is rinsing the mouth, um, this is an exception when it comes to a person fasting. So the month of Ramadan is coming up now. When it comes to the month of Ramadan, one has to be careful in this month, um, when they're having a ghusl, especially when they're fasting, that they don't need to rinse the mouth out entirely, and be very careful, right? So there is an exception here, um, that one doesn't need to do this when they're fasting. Istinshaq, the same thing would apply to the nostrils or the nose as well. Just be careful when you're doing ghusl in state of fasting. Now, when it talks about ghaslu sa'ir al-badan, this means literally entire body. Now, sometimes a person might have something on their body which prevents water from reaching that part of the body. So they might have a plaster or they might have a bandage. Now, if you have something there, which is generally, the general way to understand this, if it's there for a medical reason, you've put it there for a medical reason, and if you were to remove it, it would cause you pain because water would touch that, or it would cause an infection or something like this, right? Just anything that kind of makes sense that would cause you harm. Because remember, in Islam, we don't cause harm. La darar wa la dirar. There's an axiom, there's a qaida, which is that you don't cause harm and you don't become the means of harm, right? So if it's going to cause you harm by taking that bandage off or that plaster off, then you don't need to worry about washing it. You can just do massa or just touch over it, right? But if it's like a ring or something like this, because that's not there for medical reasons, right? For example, then you need to take that off because the water has to touch the entire body. All right. So these are the three things that are farz when it comes to bathing. Now, someone might ask that, okay, but when it came to wudu, if you remember in the first lesson, you mentioned and the author mentioned that there's the verse of the Quran which talks about four parts that need to be washed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu, إذا قمتم إلى الصلاة فاغسلوا وجوهكم, your face, وأيديكم, your hands, or your arms until your elbows, وأيديكم إلى المرافق, وامسحوا برؤوسكم. The third one was to pass or to touch your hair. وأرجلكم إلى الكعبين, and your feet. So why is it that in ghusl we don't have this? Now, the verse we know is talking about prayer and it's talking about wudu, right? Um, and that's and if you think about the first part of the verse, "Faksilu wujuhakum," wash your face. The word "wajh" is usually understood as the face or whatever. Wajh literally means something that's facing. Yeah, فَوَلِّ وَجْهَكَ شَطْرَ الْمَسْجِدِ الْحَرَامِ. Allah says elsewhere in the Quran that just face in a general direction of the Masjid al-Haram, right? So the word wajh isn't exclusively used for face. It means the face here because obviously talking about washing, but it can also mean this idea of like whatever is included generally in the face, right? And so the Hanafi fuqaha, when Allah says this in the Quran, they don't generally take that when Allah says washing the face, they don't take it to mean that you have to wash the nose and the mouth because that's not really when you just think about it literally. When someone says the face, you don't think about it inside of their nose, you don't think about it inside of their mouth, and that's why they don't make that farz in wuzu. And it goes back to one of the theories that I said before of the Hanafi school that they literally try and maintain fidelity to the literal word of the Quran. But they don't add anything extra to the Quran. If Allah says do this, they will try and follow it to what Allah has said. So they don't say, oh, well, that includes the face or that includes the nose. Sorry, that includes the nose or that includes the mouth. They say, no. Allah just said, wash your face, and what's included in the face, we just take it literally as what it means as well, right? However, so the point I'm making is in wudu, it's not fard, remember, to wash the nose or the mouth, right? Because of what I've just said, because the word for what faksilu wujuhakum, we just take it as it is. But you have another verse in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse number 6, he talks about ghusl. وَإِن كُنْتُمْ جُنُوبًا فَطَّهَّرُوا, that when you're in a state of major impurity, then فَطَّهَّرُوا is like become pure, but it's an imperative, i.e. it's an amr. Um, and when you do usul al-fiqh or legal theory, the Hanafi ulama have their own theory about what it means when Allah tells you to do something, right? Which I'm not going to go into for now, and I'm doing a separate lesson after Ramadan, separate series of lectures on that as well. So we're okay with why it's not farz in wudu to wash your nose and your mouth because we're sticking to the literal word of the Quran here, which is فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ. But the question is, why have you made it compulsory then in ghusl? And the idea is very simple. We take this verse of the Quran, وَإِن كُنْتُمْ جُنُوبًا فَطَّهَرُوا, when you're in a state of major impurity, junub, then فَطَّهَرُوا, Allah says become pure. And they have a principle, the Hanafis. They say, فَكُلُّ مَا يُمْكِنُ تَطْهِيرُهُ يَجِبُ غَسْلُهُ. Everything that there's imkan, there's a possibility of you purifying it, and it's wajib for you to wash it, right? And so the inside of the nose, the mouth, because you're able to do purification of it, فَطَّهَّرُوا, because you want to fulfill this command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why the Hanafis say, well, in ghusl, the nose and the mouth are also included because you can purify them, you can reach those places, right? So innahuma fardani fil ghusli, right? They are farz in ghusl but not in wuzu. And I've just kind of gone off slightly here, but I just wanted to make this clear because somebody might ask you the question. Well, say, you know, in wudu, the nose and the mouth are sunnah. It's not farz. Why is that? Well, we say, well, look at the verse of the Quran. Right. This is why language, learning the Arabic language, learning how to reason, learning how to think properly, um, and so forth is very, very important. Right. So this is important. This is something that's very, very useful. So the Quran just says, "Faqsilu wujuhakum." Allah says, "Wash your face," and we stick to the literal verse. We don't add to it. We don't take away from it. We stick to it as Allah Subhanahu wa Taala said. And wajh just literally means the face. So we say sunnat, but we don't make it farz. However, when it comes to ghusl, because Allah has used not faghsilu, but He said fatahharu, purify, and everything that's possible for purification, you need to purify it. And because you can get into the batin, the inside of the nose, and you can get into the mouth, and it's possible for you to do purification of it, then we will say it is farz for you. That's also included in the ghusl, but not in the wudu. So just to summarize, according to Hanafi school of law, there are three things that you need to do when it comes to ghusl, which is the rinsing of the mouth, the nose, and the washing of the entire body. There are always exceptions. This is the normative for us, if you like, and there are always exceptions to this as well. Um, what we'll do there is we'll stop there, inshallah, and we will continue next week.